All right. So let's go through the rest of this Blackboard quiz. So the first thing is question. So I left off on question 17. I finished question 17 last week. Now we're going to do question 18 and to the end. So the physician orders Valium 2.5 milligrams. This is for anxiety. You have 5 milligram tablets available, and you want to know how much to give for one dose. Sorry. Anyways, that was weird. So let's clear that up. All right. Anyways, back to this is our order, right? This is our available. Okay. So the trick to this is, I mean, it's not really a trick, but just make sure when you're writing this out, you put your order over your available and then multiply by your quantity, which is the one tablet, and you're going to get 0.5 tablets. Now, that's what you want to write as your answer on the Blackboard test is the 0.5. But sometimes on a paper test, you might want to write out, they may ask you to write it out as a half tab or half tablet. So just make sure, like, especially when you're doing a paper test, that you know which is the correct way that they want it written. They usually will tell you very explicitly how they want it written. All right, next question. I'm going to move down here. Okay. So I think the answer is going to be up here anyway. So, all right. So this one, we actually have to do a little extra work. We have to do some converting. Okay. But let's just start off. So it actually gives us our order. You can see 0.375 grams by mouth every 6 hours, which is the same thing as what? 4 times per day. So I'll just write that. You run into an issue where you are asked to uh, how many mLs to give per day, then just know that you would multiply your answer by 4, but it's only if it asks for it for per day. Okay. Stock is our available. The 125. When you have grams in the order and milligrams in the available, you need to convert. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter which one you convert. You just need to make sure they're both the same. So they can either both be grams or both be milligrams. So just I'm going to convert the 0.375 grams into milligrams. And all I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to move my decimal point over 3. So that's the same thing as 375 milligrams. Okay. Remember, 1 gram is 1,000 milligrams. You can come in. Yeah, you're good.
We're fine.
Yeah. You okay with me talking? Is that
Are you?
Yeah, but nobody's here. It's not, and this is just extra stuff. It's not a lecture, no. It's just remember the tutoring thing I told you I do? That's what I'm doing.
Okay.
So,
Do you
but
mind if we
no,
talk?
not at all. You're good. Yeah. All right, so you're just gonna hear me talking math. So you're gonna take the 375 milligrams, which is your order over your available 125 milligrams, and then multiply by your quantity, which is the 5 ml. Okay. Then when you do that, you get 375 divided by 125 is 3 times 5 is 15. So 15 ml. And then you would mark your cup. Either mark it here with that pointer on Blackboard. If you are um, if you're doing this on paper, you might want to draw a line across the cup. There's a variety of different ways that you might need to answer that. All right, here's another label question. We have an order of 0.75 milligrams. We want to know how much for, that's supposed to say one dose. So we look at our label and we can see that there's two um, doses listed. You have 125 micrograms, and then you also have 0.0125 milligrams listed. Okay. So you don't multiply those numbers. You just choose which one you want to use. So this is an example where you've been given, because you should be able to tell that 125 micrograms is equivalent to 0.125 milligrams. So it's the same strength. It's just a different, um, um, it's in a different concentration or milligram versus microgram. So since the order's in milligram, we can use the milligram. So all I'm going to do is take my 0.75 milligrams, my order, over my available, which is the 0.125 milligrams. And then it's per tablet, one tablet. So then I just need to take the 0.75 divided by the 0.125. So let's do that real quick. All right, so what did I say? 0.75 divided by 0.125. And then I'm gonna get, and I'm gonna get 6 tablets. Okay. So if the order was 750 micrograms, or if the order was in micrograms, then you could use the microgram dose. And since it was in milligrams and we have milligrams listed, and if you didn't have, if it was in milligrams and it was only given to you in micrograms, then you would need to convert. So either convert milligrams to micrograms or micrograms to milligrams. The important thing is make sure you're using the same units. Otherwise, your numbers are not going to make sense. All right. Now we got our Tagamet question. Tagamet question says, so Tagamet, and you can see that it also says cimetidine on the label. It says to give zero point 0.8 grams by mouth daily. How many tablets will you administer per dose? And you can see here where it says the available is 400 milligrams. And we have to assume it's per tablet because I can't really see. Yeah, it says tablets here. So again, this is one where you have to convert. Okay. So the 0.8 grams, I'm going to move my decimal over 3 and I get 800 milligrams over 400 milligrams times my one tablet, and then I get an answer of 2 tablets. Okay. What if I did it the other way? What if I kept this grams as my order, and then I converted this? So I just moved my decimal point over 1, 2, 3, and I had 0.4 grams as my available. It works out the same. Okay. So you can do it both ways. All right, 22. This is the Aldamet question. This one says your patient has ordered Aldamet 400 milligrams by mouth 3 times a day. And it says how many milliliters will you give in one dose? So we're looking for ml. Notice that my available says 250 milligrams per 5 ml. So I'm going to take my order over my available times my quantity. And then I'm going to get 400 divided by, or times 5 divided by 250. And then I'm going to get 8 ml. Now, let's say you got an answer and it was like, this is just an example. Let's say you get an example and it's like, 9.75 milliliters as an answer. Okay. So if you get something like that, then you're going to look at the five, and then if it's five or greater, you're going to round up. So your answer would actually be the 9.8 milliliters, what they want you to write. Okay. And then if you get like, let's say you get like, 5 point, and then this is a common one, six repeating, right? Then you would again round it to 5.7. Okay. For mLs, if you were to get something that was like, let's say you got 0.125, when you have a number less than one, then you want to round it to the nearest tenth. This is where like having two significant digits is like where you hear that like kind of reference. Um, so again, we look at the five, it tells us to move this up. So your answer would be 0.13 milliliters. I'm just trying to give you some rounding examples because sometimes that's where you can get stuck is just how do I round? All right. Number 23, we're going to do some more marking. This says you have a patient that's ordered 75 milligrams of Demerol. IM means intramuscular, stat means now. And it says how many milliliters will you give per dose? And you're going to mark the syringe. So we have to look at the label, and you'll notice that the label, it kind of hides the available. It's 50. So you're going to take your order over your available times your quantity. And again, 75 divided by 50. I'm just plugging that into my calculator. And I'm going to get 1.5 ml. Then I'm going to go here and I'm going to, so if we're on Blackboard, we're going to drop our pointer on the 1.5. If we're marking it, we might want to kind of put like a line here to indicate that you're marking it at the 1.5 mil. Ready? Back, come on down to 24. That's another syringe marking type question. So we have an order of heparin 2,500 units subcutaneously. So again, that's an injectable. Again, it says how many milliliters for one dose, and then mark the syringe. So you're going to do is you're going to look for your available, which is this 5,000 units per mil. So you're going to take your 2,500 units over your 5,000 units times your 1 ml. You're going to get 0.5 ml. I'll also add that on a syringe, your answer will be on the syringe. So if you end up getting like, you switch these numbers around, you get 2 ml, and you come over here and it's like, well, how do I do that? Then that's the wrong answer. It's going to be on the syringe. So notice that the syringe marks this at 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, and then 1. So you need to find the in between here. So if this is 0.4 and 0.6, then right in the middle is where your 0.5 would be. Okay. Now look at these individual tick marks. I could actually measure this out to 0.51, 0.52, 0.53, 0.54, 0.55. I'm sorry, these are, I think it's in twos. So 0.52, 4, 6, 8, and then, oh no, I was right. Yeah. So this is, we can even go down to the hundredths place. So I could say this is right here is 0.55, 0.6, 0.65, 0.7, 0.75, 0.8. So you can actually go down to the hundredths place and get really, really nuanced with it. So thank you. All right. Couple more questions here, I think. Yeah. So question 25, it says that the order is for morphine, 20 or 45 milligrams IV. So again, that's intravenous. Stat means now. Okay. So this is for pain. Now look here, we have a couple different pieces of information. So it does say IV. It also tells you how many milliliters, but IV also in and of itself tells you that you're looking for milliliters, right? Because how else are you going to get that in? So it's going to show you this 250 milligrams. So this is important. This 250 milligrams by itself is just telling you like what this is available in before it gets pre-filled. Okay. And then when it does get filled, or when you account for the ml strength, let me just the shorthand is if I were to give the patient the entire vial, the entire 10 milliliters that's in here, they would get 250 milligrams of morphine sulfate. Okay. However, they also then break it down to the per ml, which is what you want. This is the number you want to pay attention to. You don't need this, but just as an aside, the total is 250 milligrams. The total volume is 10 ml. And then when I reduce that, that's 25 milligrams per milliliter. Okay. So it's saying the same thing. You just need to know not to use that number when you're doing your math. So you're going to take your order over your available times your quantity, and then 45 divided by 25. You're going to get an answer of 1.8 milliliters. And then if it asked you to label a syringe or a Tubex, then you would label it at the 1.8. Okay. Don't round that answer to 2. They do want you to go to the nearest tenth. Okay. So anytime you hear to the nearest tenth, that means include the tenths place. Now, if you get a solid answer and it's just 10 milliliters, then that's your answer. You don't need to find something that's missing, but you want to incorporate the things that are supposed to be incorporated. All right, a couple more here. Another morphine question, different label though. So this one says physician ordered morphine 5 milligrams. How many milliliters we administer per dose? So it didn't even give you any kind of information about how the dosing wise. But notice here it tells you it's 10 milligrams per 10 ml, and then it reduces it down to 1 milligram per ml. So this is a little bit different of a description of the vial. But either one of these, whichever one you use, just make sure you use it. I would say use the 1/1, which is the same thing as 10/10. Okay. So this would be set up like this: 5 milligrams over 1 milligram times 1 ml, and that will give you 5 ml. Okay. So try and keep it as simple as you can when you're answering these things. Also, if it's 10 milligrams in 10 ml, then half of that would be 5 milligrams, right? 5 milligrams in 5 ml. So just don't get yourself confused over that. It always comes down to reading the question, looking over the label, and then you're crossing things out if you can cross things out, or when you're writing things down. For the sliding scale question, so this one is just, can you read the label and can you read the scale and understand what it says? So it says you're supposed to give your patient Humulin R regular U100 insulin via a sliding scale. You identify that the patient's blood glucose level is 200. So you look for the range where it says 200, and then you give whatever it says to give. So if it was less than 160, then you would say no coverage. If it was greater than 400, then you would hold the insulin and call the doctor. Usually for these questions, they're going to ask you to identify the 2, 4, 6, or even the 8 units with that. So, but that's pretty straightforward. And the last question is number 28. This one just says your patient has received 10 units of regular insulin and 20 units of NPH, and then it just says to choose the correct syringe. So when you're answering this question, you're just choosing the correct syringe. So for this one, the correct syringe is B. And the reason it's B is because insulin's measured in units, and this is the only syringe that has units listed. Okay. The other thing is you might want to know how to mark the syringe. So you would just say 10 plus 20 is 30. So you could mark the syringe at the 30 units mark. Um, there's a little bit of a nuance that we'll probably talk about in going into next semester with marking an insulin syringe where you're mixing the insulins, where you would put the regular versus where you would put the NPH. But we'll talk about that for those of you that I connect with prior to the start of fall, so you kind of know what to prepare for and how to interpret that data. There's also some helpful graphics on the shared OneDrive folder that you have access to as well. So that's what I wanted to do with you guys today. So I think the next time we meet will be next week at around 4 o'clock. And then I will go through and discuss I'll probably just continue to work on some additional like practice problems outside of this since I already went through the practice set here, and then I'll just do a couple extra nuance questions, things to kind of help get you ready for your test that's coming up. So as always, if you have questions, please email me. Please connect with me in between sessions. If there's a question that you struggled with, even if I went over it and you want me to look over it again with you, let me know. I'm happy to do that. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope this recording ends up being helpful for you. All right, take care. Bye.